Hello there and welcome. Welcome to your August 2021 Cosmic Update. I'm Psychic Cynthia, and I'm so glad you're here, fellow cosmic travelers and seeker of the higher truths. And this is your update not only for August, but really for this part of these energy cycles that we are in for the next few months ahead, because we are in a time of great retrograding. And for those of you who aren't familiar with these cosmic updates that I do or with my work, I am an astrologer, so I look at the cosmic astrological cycles, but I'm also a psychic and a channeler, so I tune into, my inner guidance and the guidance of the ancestors and the guides, and ask them to help illuminate what these astrological and cosmic cycles are all about. And as we're moving into August, we have many retrograde planets. To be precise, at the beginning of August here, we have 5 significant planetary bodies in retrograde. Well, all planetary bodies are significant, but 5 major planetary bodies that are really affecting our energy patterns on Earth and bringing up a lot of issues for us. And we're going to have 6 before the month is over. So right now, at the beginning of August, we have Jupiter, Saturn, Chiron, Neptune, and Pluto in retrograde. And then come August 14th, 2021, we will have Uranus joining these other planets in retrograde. And what that means in the larger picture, of course you could look at each one of these planetary energies and what area of life they're representing, and you could, look at your chart. But really, let's just look big picture here. What this means with all these retrogrades is that there are a lot of issues being reactivated right now. So retrograde is related to a reactivation. Retrograde means that there isn't as much new energy coming in so much as we are recycling old energies and old themes and revisiting. And by the way, this explains some of what is going on right now in the outer realms, in the outer world. What's going on right now, what you hear about in the media and, things that are happening. Doesn't it seem like we are revisiting old issues? And this is part of that retrograde influence. So just understand this, that right now we're working with a lot of the old material. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It depends on how you approach it and if you approach it consciously. Because not all of the old material is, fear-based, but some of it is, okay? And part of this, with this many retrogrades, by the way, this isn't just for August, because these planets that are retrograding, they're very slow moving, most of them. Actually, all of them are slow moving. Jupiter is the fastest moving of them all, and Jupiter takes 1 year to complete its movement through a sign. That's not that slow compared to, say, Neptune or Pluto, which takes much longer to go through a single sign. So we're going to have some time to revisit these old energies. And perhaps you have noticed some memories from the past coming back up again, or people and connections from the past. And again, it's not all negative, okay? It doesn't have to be inherently negative, because it can be you reconnecting back with past strengths, relationships that used to feed you, energy patterns that used to be uplifting to you. Maybe you've gotten off your path in some way. There's a practice that you used to do that used to feed you, or a way of looking at things that used to uplift you. And maybe you need to get back to that. But it depends on how conscious you are. And, the retrograde energy activates collective patterns, collective history. So a lot of what is happening now in the outer world, we are seeing a replaying of history. And what history? The history of our ancestors, right? The history of Earth, okay? And not just recent history, but we're seeing these old archetypal patterns replaying themselves. And so that's why in some ways it feels like we're going backwards. But it all depends, I want to emphasize, on how conscious you are able to stay. And for many people who are, more in the mainstream and not yet engaging in their conscious awareness, their conscious spirituality, these retrogrades are going to bring up chaos and fear. Because part of the actual phenomenon of a retrograde, okay, understand that. First of all, planets are not actually moving backwards. That is not the physical phenomenon. But there is a physical phenomenon, and planets do appear to be moving backwards. What is happening is their rate of orbit is slowing down and deepening. And to those of us here on Earth, it appears as if those planets are moving backwards. They're not. It's just slower, deeper. So you can think of that as a metaphor for what is going on collectively, but also internally for those of us who are on this higher spiritual, cosmic, psychic journey. It may appear that you're moving backwards in some ways, or you may feel very stuck. Because that's the other thing. The orbits of these planets, they're not very quick anyway, these outer planets. But when they slow down in the retrograde, they get very, very slow. So you may feel stuck right now, especially in this month of August. As we get 6 planets lining up. Well, they're not lining up in conjunction, but they are all in retrograde, or will be by the middle of the month. So you may feel stuck. You may feel as if, oh my gosh, I have to go back and recircle this old ground. That's not a bad thing, though, to go back. Sometimes going back is the only way to go forward. And that doesn't mean you need to go back and get stuck in the patterns. Okay, let me be clear here. Now, obviously, if you're going back and reviving something, a practice that is helpful or a connection that is nurturing, that is good, okay? For example, if you're going back and reviving ways that you used to eat that were more healthy before all the recent chaos happened, that's good, right? If you're falling off the bandwagon in your physical practices, and taking care of your body, and you get back on, you go back to that way of being that is more healthy for you and more nurturing, that's good. But in many cases, what we're doing is we're going back to look at old patterns, old ways of being, so we can review them, learn from these situations, these energy patterns and these past occurrences, these past ways of doing things. We want to revisit them, learn from them, so that we can grow, so that you can grow, so that you can move forward, dear one. So it's not just about going back, okay? When you go back home, so to speak, you can see how much you have changed and how much you need to change, where you want to grow. So when you go back into your past, that can help you evaluate how much have you grown, how much have you learned, and where do you need to learn more? How can you evolve more? And a lot of it has to do with, I feel, looking at what patterns within ourselves, what ideas do we need to let go of? What patterns and ideas within ourselves must we let go of in order to move forward? And a lot of times we'll be looking at, certain relationships or situations, jobs or locations or, projects, different things. We'll be looking at things in the outer world that we're doing or people that we're relating with, and we'll think, yeah, okay, I need to let this go to move forward. And that might be true. It is true sometimes. Sometimes on our way ahead, we just have to unshackle ourselves. And I get that, and I've been there. But it's most important to unshackle yourself from the beliefs and energy patterns within yourself that are holding you back. That's a cleansing on a deep level. And I don't know what those beliefs are for you, because that part is unique to each person, but you want to think about that. For many right now, I've observed that, one of the beliefs that is holding many people back is, the belief of, or an expectation. There's a lot of chatter going on in the world right now, disharmonious chatter. And that's to be expected with all these retrogrades, by the way. And by the way, we really started in on the retrograde cycle. If you look this year, it wasn't just with the retrogrades, it was with the eclipses and looking at the end of May and especially in June. So that was the beginning of this time of outer world chaos and dishevel. Not that there wasn't some before, but it was accelerated. And that's what retrogrades do. When they slow down, the orbit, there's also, it kind of throws off the equilibrium. I mean, physically, in the cosmic universe, there is a disturbance in the force. There is a jarring effect in the equilibrium. So we're all a little rattled right now, and that really started in June, and then you just keep piling retrogrades upon retrogrades. Now, thank goodness Mercury is direct, okay? So we have that. So you have the tools of logic available to you if you wish to use it. You can sort through this and, of course, use your intuition. That's the most important, to utilize that deep inner knowing. But at least your logic can help you look at things and process data about your life right now. That is good. But one of the things that's happening right now is, with all this chaos, we're hitting up against each other's patterns and each other's fears, and it seems to me that a pattern that would be good for all of us to look at releasing, because it's not helpful right now. It seems many of us, we have expectations of others, unreasonable, really, at this time, because with these energies the way they are, people are just not going to be functioning at their best. We're all under a lot of stress. Now, if you have your tools available to you, if you just even understand these cosmic cycles, that's a start. But if you continue to practice your meditation, your body work, your grounding and your centering, if you keep yourself nurtured on a physical level, and do your practices basically. Consult your divination tools, work with your counselors and all the good things that you do, okay? If you have that lineup going on, and if you continue to do that, if you continue to utilize your plant medicine, like I do, use your essential oils, use your flower essences, don't use them, work in partnership with them. Be in nature. Let nature heal you. These are all tools that you have available, and if you'll utilize them, you can get through this in a relatively more sane way. But here's the thing, you have to know, I think even if you are feeling sane and centered, is that a lot of the world isn't with all these retrogrades. So don't be at all surprised if you go into an interaction or a conversation and you're just shocked by another person's closed-mindedness, anger, hate, or unreasonability. Because these retrogrades are bringing up, they're dredging up all these old patterns, remember? So that people can face it and deal with it. But that doesn't mean that everybody is, okay? So when you go into your interactions with people, just be open. Don't have any particular expectations, because, if you're getting shocked, triggered, disappointed, saddened, I understand it is hard right now to watch some of these different hatreds play out. And they're old hatreds, okay? They're old karmic hatreds. People don't understand that. Mainstream people, they don't understand that it's not about this current issue. It goes far back, I think, to Atlantis. Maybe further, maybe to Lemuria. I see. My guides have shown me that some of these things go far back that are happening now, the hatreds and the discourse, the way people are dividing each other and putting them into these groups, and you do this, but, oh, you don't do this, oh, so we're going to attack you, right? Or vice versa. That's all very old tribal hatreds, very old, and these retrogrades are bringing up those ancestral and tribal energies, again, to be healed and cleansed. But it's up to each one of us to do that healing, and it's up to us to do less harm. And listen, I get it. Some people out there are really spreading fear, and maybe some people in your personal life, you interact with them, and they seem to be coming from a really closed down heart level. They seem to, be narrow-minded, narrow-hearted, as I would call it, closed-hearted. You know that narrow-minded and closed-hearted go hand in hand. Did you know that? When we narrow our minds, we also close our hearts. When we think we have it all figured out, that means we're building heart walls. So think about that for a minute. And it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. What matters is, do you have that kind of emotional openness, that warmth? Are you accessing that higher point of view, that cosmic consciousness that sees the oneness? Out beyond right and wrong, there is wholeness, there is oneness, there is that connection in the love field. It's just something to think about. And, you can't expect others right now to be at their best. They're just not. I mean, you can have that expectation if you want, but if that's a pattern that you're carrying within you, if your pattern is that you expect others to be a certain way or to agree with you, that's another pattern. Well, that will be challenged right now, and you will experience great distress if that is your inner pattern. So that's part of the retrogrades for you. And listen, if those are your patterns, and I think we all have that to some extent, it's okay. It's part of being human. But work with that. And, be willing to let go. Be willing to cleanse that. Be willing to step into cosmic acceptance. And this doesn't mean you have to accept that you don't have to agree with what another person says or even what they're doing. But the acceptance is just accepting that we are all human on this journey, and that we all have to go through our struggle, and we all have to deal with our patterns that are coming up. So different people have different ways. And I've been around this planet many turns, and every generation has to go through it in some ways. Every generation has to cleanse and face their hatred. They have to cleanse and face their fears, and that is what we're going through right now, partly. Now, it isn't all about that, and again, if you can maintain conscious awareness, if you can say, okay, I will accept that other people are where they're at. Basically, that's what we're talking about. We'll just accept this is where people are at, And not approaching that with a spirit of violence. I mean, if you're trying to force somebody to your position, that is violence on a spiritual level. So let's practice nonviolence. Let's practice peace. And if you'll do that, you will be more peaceful. You'll be able to disengage. So I would encourage you to focus on disengaging from this outer chaos, and also disengaging from the need to try to enlighten people who are not wishing to be enlightened right now. You know what I mean? I mean, they have their karma, right? And they have what they have to work through. And if they're ready to have their hearts open, or when they will, it will open. But in the meantime, don't let yourself get so entangled in their fear patterns, their hatred patterns, their maybe gloom and doom patterns. These are all, energy patterns that could be coming up with these retros. Don't let yourself get so engaged with that you start to perpetuate it, right? That you become part of that. I mean, have you noticed that if you get really engaged and hooked into say a conversation or an interaction with someone who is coming from that more fear-based, narrow-minded, close-hearted way, have you noticed that you leave that experience not feeling too good, right? You kind of feel icky and like you need cleansing. Well, guess what you do, actually? And it's not cleansing just from the other person. It's cleansing from, there's something within you that was being activated there. So it's something you need to look at. And even if it's only just looking at, hey, I will accept others where they're at. I won't keep trying to move them if they don't want to be moved. That's a very powerful affirmation right there, accepting others where they're at. It's a powerful way to be. It doesn't mean you like it, okay? It doesn't mean that they'll stay there either. We all have such powerful creative ability and an ability to tap into the cosmos, to the higher energies and also to the earth energies. We have an ability to work with nature, with the ancestors for healing. But we can only do that if we stay conscious and don't let our own crap run our lives. That's all. And one of the best ways to do that is not to get so, entangled in other people's crap. All right? So if you start to feel entangled, okay, if you start to feel fuzzy, that's your sign to step back and do some cleansing. Do some breath work. That's the first thing that I would recommend if you want to know what is the quickest way to come back from that breath work. And there are many different ways to work with the breath, but one of the easiest, I think some people call it the box breath, or I call it the even count breath. And that is just to take in an even number. In other words, you're going to breathe in, let's say, you could do 4. Some people do 4. I like to raise the numbers up a little to 6 or 10. We could just take a deep breath in to say 6. 6 counts. And you hold it for 6 counts too, or whatever the number is you're working with, and then you release it for the same number. And you can do that circuit breathing. You can do that over and over. And by the way, at the end, after you've exhaled, what you might want to work up to, not in the beginning, you'll also just have a moment of pause where you're not exhaling or inhaling. But that will be something to work up to. So it's just an even count. Inhale, hold it for that amount, exhale for that amount, and just keep that going in that circular looping breathing, and that will help you unhook. So let's get unhooked from the, illusion, right? That would be good to do in the months ahead while we're experiencing the effects of these retrogrades. And if you can do that, there can be great power in these retrogrades, great creative power, because all you have to do is unhook a little and shifts will happen, energy will happen, miracles will happen. That's the irony, you can work hard and take action and get organized and try to do all the things that you think you should be doing and all the right things. But if you are hooked into that fear consciousness and that scarcity consciousness and that panic consciousness and that gloom and doom and that judgment and all of that, hating on others, if you're hooked into that self-righteousness, I'm naming some of these patterns that are coming up now, you could be doing all the right things and yet nothing seems to be working right. And that's because you're not hooked into the right energies for expansion and creativity. So try to use your breath to kind of unhook from some of the other stuff. And I know it's hard. Listen, I know it's hard because, it's out there. But pay more attention to what's in here than what's out there and what's up there and all around us and in the earth. Pay more attention to that. If you have time to watch the news and engage in contentious, conversations on social media, you have time to go within. You have time to meditate. You have time to learn a new way. Alrighty. On that note, I'm sending you all the love and asking that the Great Spirit
of the cosmos and our ancestors and our guides, just asking and calling upon them and giving permission and asking that they help us, guide us through this time, and seeing you all have the most fantastic late summer and fall possible. Bright blessings.